Macon Pyatt Special Education District Director Kathy Horath, and Special Education Administrator Lindsay Coker, and School Psychologist Deborah Ryan. We also have Brian Minsker, the President of the Illinois PTA, and we have two Decatur School Board members who have joined us, Beth Creighton and Sherry Perkins. And we're here today to call on Governor Rauner to sign Senate Bill 1 into law. I am a Springfield native and a Millikan grad. I was also a teenage mom who was really lucky to have great educational opportunities for my daughter. She got a great start here at Decatur Public Schools. She graduated last year from Springfield Public Schools. And every one of those years, from her preschool days at Pershing to her high school years at Springfield High, was under a flawed school funding system that has been identified by multiple national studies as the most inequitable school funding system in the country. In the last 20 years, there's only been one school funding reform bill that has passed both chambers of the legislature, and that is Senate Bill 1. The only thing standing between our kids and a fair school funding system in Illinois is the governor's signature. This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity, and unfortunately, Governor Rauner is playing politics with our children and their education, rather than being the guy who finally solves the school funding crisis. He should not veto this bill. His administration has said he supports 90% of what's in the bill, and we're calling on our elected leaders to come together, work together, find a compromise for our kids. This is incredibly important in the long term because our school funding system is utterly broken, but it's also critically important for the short term because without an evidence-based model in place, the state cannot make funding formula payments to schools that are due August 10th. Our kids don't deserve to be caught in the middle of all this. And I'm going to turn it over now to Dr. Fregeau, who can talk a little bit about the importance of Senate Bill 1 for Decatur Public Schools.
Good afternoon. Thank you for everybody being here today in support of our efforts. I really appreciate you taking time out of everybody's busy day to be here and listen to what's going to be said today. As you've heard, we're calling on Governor Rauner to sign Senate Bill 1. It's 20 years is too long for there not to be an adjustment to how schools are funded in this state. Our schools need certainty, they need stability in how they're going to be funded. The vagaries that currently exist on this, under the budget funding system is not acceptable and not good for kids. Senate Bill 1 is the only bill that's in front of our governor that is an evidence-based formula, which is part of the budget that was approved. Without that, no funds can be released to the public schools. We will not get our August 10th payment unless this bill is passed by early August. As I said, it's an evidence-based model that both chambers of the House approved and have been working on for several years. I think it improves the transparency for our parents and our community on how schools are funded. It's based on 27 criteria, which make a lot of sense to educators on what services schools need to provide in the 21st century. So I hope that we make some headway in the next couple days. I know they're all gathering in Springfield tomorrow, and hopefully we can get some movement on Senate Bill 1 and get this money released to help kids in Decatur and throughout the state. Now I'll turn it over to Kathy Horath, Macon Pyatt Director.
Good afternoon. I am the Special Ed Director of 12 public school districts here in Central Illinois. And I'd like to talk a little bit about the special education implications of Senate Bill 1. Recently, the budget appropriations bill passed in the General Assembly, giving relief to many nonprofit agencies and even higher education. But school funding was left undone. The budget appropriations bill did not allocate any funds to general state aid, the special ed personnel reimbursement, funding for students requiring special education, or special education summer school. These lines were zeroed out on the budget with just the stipulation that education funding must be contingent on evidence-based model. SB1 is that model. There has been some confusion about SB1 and special education funding. SB1 includes an integrated formula, which means that rather than having lots of separate grants, most school funding will flow through one streamlined mechanism. This maximizes flexibility to local districts and it fixes the worst school funding system in the nation. But some people worry that with that increased flexibility, this will cause districts to divert that money that should have been earmarked to special education students to other needs. That's not true. These special ed funds will continue to be earmarked for special education students. In fact, the special education allocation increases, which may allow more funds to be allocated to my school district to hire additional special education staff. ISBE has communicated they need the school funding appropriations by August 3rd to make the first state payment by August 10th. SB1 has passed both chambers of the General Assembly. It only needs a signature to become law. We urge the governor to work with the legislators on this matter. With that, I'd like to turn it over to one of our school psychologists, Deb Ryan.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you everyone for showing up. I kind of look at this like a 911 crisis or in a medical model. That we're all kind of sitting in the waiting room or in the ICU unit waiting for that magic cure to come, for someone to walk out and say, we've got the answer to it. Well, in my mind, we have the answer to it. It's a 2-second signature on a piece of paper that would go from a critical issue to an absolutely cured issue. And for me, that's just such a simple thing to do. And as I was thinking of that, I'd like to say to Governor Rauner, you know, way back, and I'm an old person too, someone in a classroom sat you down at a desk, and we call that a teacher. And that teacher taught you how to form letters, how to write, and to put those letters together, and to make your name in a cursive signature. Someone taught you how to spell the word governor, and to put that in a sentence and get a definition, that was a teacher. Someone taught you local politics. Maybe even someone took you on a field trip to the state capitol so that you could see government in action. Those were teachers. If he could be here today, and if he had the blessing of all those teachers, would you look at them and say, I'm not going to use those skills? I'm going to maybe prohibit other students within the state of Illinois from exceeding like I have. Signing that bill is so simple. And sometimes doing the hardest thing is the easiest thing in the long run. Doing what's right isn't always fun, but that's where you take the collective wisdom of the group and everyone around you and look at what you have and make that decision to sign Senate Bill 1. Thank you.
Senate Bill 1 is good for Macon Piatt districts. It's good for all districts in Illinois. Students deserve adequate funding, and funding for minorities and as well as special education students as well as early childhood students is so important. We've seen delays in funding, and cuts in funding could be detrimental to those students. SB1 directs new resources to allocate for those students' needs and schools' needs, and it's very important that we pass SB1. With the passing of SB1, there will not be any cuts to the local and state funding that is already allocated to districts in Illinois and our district here in Decatur. I'm urging Governor Rauner to sign SB1 for our students.
Good afternoon. I'm Brian Minsker, President of the Illinois PTA. Much of the news since the passage of the state budget has focused on the requirement of an evidence-based model in order for our schools to get their funding this year. And the need to keep our schools open, which for some has already begun, is certainly one reason to support SB1, which is the only evidence-based model that has passed both houses of the General Assembly. But that budget requirement is not the primary reason that the Illinois PTA is urging Governor Rauner to sign SB1. Illinois PTA has long supported education funding that is adequate, equitable, and sustainable as part of our legislative platform. While the state remains far from meeting those three goals, SB1 is an important first step towards achieving them. As a statewide association of PTAs in rural, suburban, and urban school districts, it was essential that no school district lose funding under an evidence-based funding model, and that such protections last for more than a handful of years. SB1 provides just that, locking in current levels of funding as a foundation. In Illinois, we currently spend a worst in the nation 81 cents on a low-income student's education for every $1 we spend on a non-low-income student's education. By determining the unique cost to educate a student in each Illinois school district, by measuring that district's ability to raise its own funding, by treating every school district in Illinois the same in how current, but not legacy pension costs are handled, and by providing more funding for districts the further they are from achieving their target funding, SB1 begins the process of providing a more equitable and a distribution of funds throughout Illinois. This approach is essential to guaranteeing that the quality of a child's education does not depend on their zip code. Governor Rauner promised to fix our funding formula. His bipartisan commission recommended an evidence-based funding model, which SB1 now implements. The time's come for the governor to deliver on that promise and sign SB1. We've spent the last 2 years without a budget, and we've seen the lasting damage that has been done to our community colleges, our universities, and our social services. Now that we finally have a budget, let's not shift the political fight to our schools and our children, for that is what this truly is about. Do we provide every child in Illinois with quality education, or we're to use our children, our future, as pawns to score political points? Governor Rauner, Illinois PTA, urges you to sign SB1 for every Illinois child. Thank you.
Thank you. We can take any questions.